2016 Stanley Cup Playoffs is a presentation of Hockey Night in Canada in association with the National Hockey League.
Oh, what a huge night in the Stanley Cup playoffs. What a huge matchup you get to see tonight. And for all you non-playoff teams and your fans, it's been a difficult season. Well, tonight, your franchise's fortunes could turn around. Tonight, your team's dreams could become a reality.
Pittsburgh Penguins.
Pittsburgh Penguins select Sidney Crosby.
And we proudly select Patrick Kane.
From Sarnia Sting, Steven Stamkos.
The New York Islanders select John Tavares.
The first overall pick, the Edmonton Oilers.
The Edmonton Oilers would like to select from the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid.
Tonight, we find out who picks first overall. And here we go. The countdown is on. There he is, the commissioner of the National Hockey League, Gary Bettman, making his way through the room. Ray Shero of the New Jersey Devils, and Jim Treliving, whose son is the GM of the Calgary Flames. Brendan Shanahan, him and his team, the Leafs, stand the best chance tonight in terms of mathematics to win the draft lottery. Marc Bergevin, the Montreal Canadiens, they sit at 9th with a 5% chance of winning. They are getting ready. You can see Trevor Linden wondering. Vancouver Canucks, 3. That's where they sit, 11.5% chance of getting it tonight. And in just over an hour from now, 14 team representatives will take their seats in those chairs as the Deputy Commissioner of the National Hockey League, Bill Daly, starts to read out who gets to pick where. And that's the spot where Mr. Daly will make the reveal. What a night it's going to be on Hockey Night in Canada and your NHL Draft Lottery. I know you know this, but it is worth showing it to you again. There are your odds. Toronto, number 1. You can see where Columbus sits, Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Arizona, Buffalo, Montreal. How will it play out? Come on inside and welcome to the Hockey Night in Canada studios. My name is George Stroumboulopoulos. What night it's going to be. The draft will be held in Buffalo, New York this year. And this is full circle of life. The last time the draft was held in Buffalo, Vincent Lecavalier was taken first overall. And we assume that Vincent has played his last game as a National Hockey League pro player. So who will pick up the torch in Western New York? There's a lot to get into tonight. All kinds of interviews, all kinds of conversations, building drama. There's a couple of ways to build drama. Number 1, desperation. A lot of us have felt that all year long. And number 2, the format. The format is a little bit different this year as it relates to the draft. For more on that, let's get right to Darren Millard, who's standing by with the man who you will either love or hate tonight, depending on how he calls it. Bill Daly.
Okay, I want to get to the drama part because you're really good at that. I want to see, just get your opinion on how much you enjoy dragging that out with the people that are watching it. But the change this year from years past to the draft lottery.
Well, you know, we've taken the sequential steps toward tonight's change, and we did a phased-in approach. But tonight will be the first time in NHL history, when we've had the lottery, that the first 3 selections in the draft will be determined by the draft lottery.
And the first draw, is that the number 1 pick, or do you go 3, 2, 1?
Now, the first draw in the sequestered room will be the number 1 pick. Then there'll be a second draw for the number 2 pick. If the number 1 pick's numbers come out again, there's a redraw, and so on until you get the top 3 picks.
You're in from New York. You obviously know how much this means to Canada. Do you get that sense?
I certainly get a sense. There's a buzz in Toronto today. There's no doubt. There's a little bit of excitement. I think a lot of it has to do with the format, but obviously a lot of it has to do with the possibilities.
Okay, be honest with me. Do you really get a kick out of just dragging out that extra beat when you reveal the last couple of choices?
No.
No?
No.
There's nothing staged there?
I'm looking to get off the set as quickly as possible.
Bill Daly, you'll see him in just over an hour. George?
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you very much, Darren Millard. Here we are with Damien Cox. So, Damien, we do know that essentially that first overall pick is who it's going to be. And we're going to explore the top 5 a little bit later on with you. But here is your top 10, how you think the prospects might play out. How did you get to this?
Well, you talk to an awful lot of people is what you do. I mean, I'm not a scout, so I have to go out there and find and rely on people who really are, willing to share their sense of how this is going to go. And not just how good these individual players are, but how they kind of fit as pieces in the overall puzzle of the draft. So today's the draft lottery, and that's exciting in of itself. And sometimes we lose track of, after the draft lottery, there's going to be a draft, which is going to be a fascinating exercise.
And in the time from the draft lottery to the actual draft. There's a couple of tournaments, right?
That's right.
So things can absolutely change.
You got the MasterCard Memorial Cup. You got the World Championships. Right. The two top guys, Matthews and Laine, are going to be in that. So a lot could change.
So, like I said, we'll talk about the top 5, essentially top 3. Let's talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois. What are you seeing out of him?
Well, he's been the light riser in the draft. He went from number 7 in Central Scouting, NHL Central Scouting at midterm, to number 1. So he is a guy who's sort of now interjected himself into this top 10 discussion where he wasn't before.
Well, speaking of the changes, so Jacob Chychrun, puck-moving D, well, there's Tyson Jost next. We can talk about Jost. Now, he played in a lower tier. Right. Has that affected his position?
Well, and he had such a great performance at the World Under-18 Championships. Some scouts are saying that took the asterisk away from his name, because they know he broke Connor McDavid's record at that tournament for Canadian points. So he's the guy who's now in the top 10.
Jacob Chychrun, Sarnia, earlier in the year was as high as number 2. What affected that move?
I think a lot of the other guys are moved past him because they've been really good. And Logan Brown is now right behind him. Their dads were drafted in the same draft, one after the other, if you can believe it, and they're good friends. Logan Brown, he might be 6'6". He could be 6'7" by the draft. This kid won't stop growing, and he's got tons of talent. He might even go a lot higher than 10th.
He's growing in front of you. How tall is he last time you saw him?
Last time I saw him, he was 6'6.5". So I think
Damien with a measuring tape. That's how it works. All right, we'll explore the top 5 in just a bit with Damien Cox. But first, let's check in with Elliot Friedman, who's standing by with one of the more famous faces in the history of the game. Elliot?
John Davidson from the Columbus Blue Jackets, the president of hockey operations. And John, tell us about the fan you met at the Columbus airport today.
I was heading out of Columbus this morning, sitting at the gate waiting for the flight, and a gentleman came by and said, "You're the hockey guy, right?" I said, "Yeah, I am, with the Blue Jackets." He says, I know. We're season ticket holders. I said, "That's great." He says, "You going up to Toronto for that lottery thing?" I said, "Yeah, sure am." He says, "Well, good luck. Our family's really excited about the Blue Jackets." And he left. A couple, 3 minutes later, I got a tap on the shoulder. He said, "This sounds a little corny, but take this and put it in your pocket. It's going to help you for good luck," he said. So I said, "Well, very nice of you. I appreciate that." And there's a little something tucked in there.
And you're not going to tell us what this is right now, right?
Not a shot. Not a chance, Elliot. No shot.
Okay, so you stand 4th.
Yeah.
If you stay 4th, disappointed or okay?
No, it is what it is. We have no control over it. So if we get lucky and move to 1, we'll be the happiest group in the world. If we stay where we are, we feel that this draft is a deep draft. Obviously, at the top end, there's some really good special talent, franchise-changing talent. But this is a deep draft. You could get a good player all the way through with the teams that have missed the playoffs. So we're excited about the draft in general.
All right, thank you, John, and good luck.
Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate it.
George?
All right, thank you very much, Elliot and John Davidson. Here I am with Nick Kiprios and Kelly Rudy, guys who've played on teams with top draft picks. We've seen how this has all played out. Certainly you played with Wayne Gretzky, of course, that different scenario altogether. There was a big game tonight. We're talking about the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. We know what number 1 meant for the Capitals. We know what number 1 meant for the Pittsburgh Penguins several times. But with Crosby, that's when it all really changed, the draft.
Yeah, it is. And I even go back to my era with Lindros and the Philadelphia Flyers, and they sort of started the design of what a first pick overall could mean to a franchise on and off the ice. And then Pittsburgh really perfected it in 2004 when they took Sidney Crosby. Of course, we all knew the type of player that he was on the ice. It had been well documented, the way he came through the ranks in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And then the ability to build a building around you, to sell tickets door to door. His face was really the franchise. And of course, it still doesn't come that easy to a franchise because you got to build it around it. And of course, in Pittsburgh, Kelly, the sights of Malkin, Marc-Andre Fleury, Jordan Staal, that's really what needed to follow after him.
And we'll learn a little bit later on. Scott Morrison's going to walk us through it a little bit. Just because you get a number 1 overall pick doesn't mean you're going to win the cup. Yeah. It just really doesn't, right? There's a lot more to this.
Absolutely, and it's an awfully exciting day for the franchise. Their fans, we know that. They're going to have a future superstar on their hands. But really, the building continues behind the scenes. So these organizations, as you said, Nick, they recognize it. Great, I've got this corner piece, but unless I put surrounding players around him, it's all for naught. So it's really important that they do their due diligence, and the future rounds of this draft are important.
You mentioned Eric Lindros. Yeah. I mean, Eric Lindros changed 2 franchises.
Yeah.
Futures. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's right.
So, one of the big stories, of course, today is Austin Matthews. We know that last year it was about Connor McDavid, the guy we've all talked about today. You'll see him tonight in the matchup is Sidney Crosby. And earlier, Sidney Crosby actually had a chance to catch up with Scott Oakes. So we'll get down now to the rink. There he is. That's the draft lottery. That's when he went. Sid and Scott.
Sidney, you were the original lottery pick in 05 when all 30 teams had a crack at you. How do you remember that?
It was exciting. When I look back, it was just an exciting time knowing that, being ranked first, knowing that whatever that team was that came out, that was a good chance I was going to be the team that you played for. I think it's a unique thing, and it's exciting, I think, at the same time.
Game one was, I think, everything people hoped it would be with respect to, high-flying, entertaining hockey, although you would have hoped for a different result. But what's your takeaway from it?
Exactly that. Just a really good hockey game. Both teams had their opportunities. Obviously, they got the last one that counted, but I think that, especially in the second, third, we felt like we had some really good chances, generated a lot, and if we can build off of that, hopefully we give ourselves a chance to, to even this up here in game two.
This Penguins team is being lauded for his speed. Is that your best chance to tie the series?
Yeah, that's a strength. I mean, that's what's got us here. They play with a lot of speed too. They're pretty physical, so it's a matter of just who's going to get to their game better and more often. And like I said, I thought we'd do that more in the second and third, and hopefully we can build off of that. But it's close. It's tight hockey out there, and it's been the case all season long, and expect a lot more of that here this series.
And finally, Sidney, what's the fine line between answering the physical challenge but yet not being drawn into battles that in which you run the risk of being penalized?
Yeah, it's always a fine line. I think for us, that hasn't been really part of our game, for a long time. So, we need to play whistle. Definitely got to stick up for each other when the time comes and make sure we're taking care of our goalie, taking care of that area of the net. But for the most part, you got to save our energy for between the whistles.
Thanks, Sid. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Not too long after the number one pick is announced, that's when that game will start. The Penguins and the Caps. Who will go number one? We'll meet him next.
Austin Matthews, he's going to be the first overall pick.
But he's a shooter like Joe Sakic.
Here comes Matthews, scores!
Tor! 3:2 für die ZSC Lions. Austin Matthews.
Well, if you're nervous as a fan out there, how do you think these gentlemen feel? Team reps from 14 National Hockey League franchises getting ready to see where they will select and whom they will have an opportunity to select in the upcoming draft. And of course, this is all centering around the big game tonight, the Verizon Center in the District of Columbia, Washington tonight, the Caps and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Game 2 coming up. A whole bunch of number one picks in that particular game. You can see how important it would be for your franchise. What's so interesting about this particular draft this year is because all of the Canadian teams have a real shot at selecting first overall or second or third, but certainly in first, they're pinning all their hopes on an American kid from Arizona. He grew up a fan of the then Phoenix Coyotes. Who is this Austin Matthews?
The United States has 10 times as many people as Canada. And over the last 50 years, you can argue that the best athletes in the United States went and played baseball, football, basketball. And what you're going to find now is some of the best athletes are going to say, you know what, I'm going to play hockey.
A decade ago, the game's greatest players saw a shift in youth sports, a vision that is coming true today. Top prospect Austin Matthews calls Scottsdale, Arizona his home, and the Coyotes the major reason he came to love the game.
I loved watching Shane Doan and Daniel Briere.
Trying to come up front, Briere scores! Wow, Daniel Briere, roof that shot!
Briere especially, I love the way he celebrated goals, going down on one knee and fist pumping, and I try to always mimic that. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, probably didn't look the same.
For this particular kid to come out of Scottsdale, Arizona is extremely impressive. If you don't have the Phoenix Coyotes and he doesn't go to a game, maybe he's playing baseball or another sport.
Matthews' hockey journey has been unconventional. At 16, he moved to Michigan to play for the U.S. National Development Team. Matthews then made the groundbreaking decision to forego playing in either the NCAA or the CHL.
Here's an interesting little story for you. Austin Matthews
will play in Switzerland next season.
The American-born center opted to sign a one-year deal with the ZSC Lions.
We're always about what are the best options for our players, and we were looking for a place where he could challenge himself a little bit more, perhaps. Mark Crawford is an experienced NHL coach who's been there for years, and he could help him in his development. And the bottom line through all this is when we presented this to Austin, he was ready for the challenge.
making that transition over this year and kind of looking back on it now that the season is over, it was definitely a great experience for myself, and I feel like I learned a lot there, and if I had to do it over again, I definitely would.
Yeah, everyone has a different road to get to where they are, and he's picked kind of the unbeaten path. It's a little bit new and different.
Doppeltorschütze Austin Matthews.
With 46 points in 36 games, Matthews proved he made the right decision. And while he may have been out of sight for most fans, he is an exceptional talent, the consensus #1, who will make one team very happy they won the lottery.
He's a great kid. He's going to bring a lot to a team. He's competitive, he works hard. He's dedicated to the game, and he's going to come right in and obviously make an impact.
He shows you something different every game, whether it's his power moves to the net, his speed through the neutral zone, his ability to adjust to defensive tactics, and actually his awareness in the defensive zone.
Good, yeah, nice. Oh, no.
I've been in the business for 20 years now and had hundreds of players, and this kid's special. There's a lot to his game, from being a power forward to having great vision, great hands. So he's a special player.
So there's your consensus #1, Austin Matthews. How about #2 or #3? Some scouts are saying that the guy who goes #2 perhaps has the biggest upside. For more on the Finnish dream, here's Darren Millard working his phone and some FaceTime. Darren?
George, thank you very much. All conversations with Patrick start and end with his shot. Sidney Crosby shot pucks into the dryer in his basement, and Connor McDavid was shooting pucks in his garage. What's your secret?
I started to shoot those Coca-Cola bottles from the top corners, and we just wanted to do some competitions with my dad in my backyard, and we just try to shot to those bottles, and which one is the loser has to do something.
How old were you when you beat him for the first time?
It was a couple of years ago.
You're a bit of a rock star. You've really embraced this whole season of being a top-rated prospect. How much fun have you had with Jesse with this?
I've had a pretty fun time.
There's a conversation going on right now that you've closed the gap on Austin Matthews. How aware are you of that?
I know that the cap is now smaller than when the season started, so I've tried to be better every game and every day, and I've played some good games, and they've helped me with my games, and I think the gap is now smaller, and hope that I can catch him.
Do you think you can here?
Yeah, I think maybe if I can make it to the World Champions team, so I think it's possible.
I have to say, you're a cool cat here. Really casual about this.
Yeah, I know what I'm capable of, and I know that, and I'm saying that, so I'm not afraid to say it out loud, and I like that myself.
Well, I know it's going to be an eventful night for you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks.
George?
All right, thank you very much, Darren. Here he is, Damien Cox. Damien, let's take the guys that we project to be in the top 5, everybody does, and to help everybody out, put them in a little potential context, potential perspective. Who are they? But more importantly, who do they remind you of?
Well, let's start with Austin Matthews, likely to be the '1 pick in the draft. And for me and for a lot of people, the comparison is Anze Kopitar. That's a pretty good comparison. Left-handed shot, 6'3", can have all the skills to score and make plays. And both these guys now have their roots in European hockey.
So we know that that's a #1 guaranteed pick. We expect the two Finns to go 2 and 3.
Right, and the comparison here is interesting. Patrick Laine's really got a lot of people excited, and some people think he might challenge for the #1 spot.
That's going to give him a rash. It's going to make him nervous, this comparison here.
Well, I would think so. Alex Ovechkin, and maybe that's a lot to compare, but what gets people excited when they see highlight reel shots of Patrick Laine are the one-timers. That's an Ovechkin thing. So that's why a lot of people see that comparison. And for Jesse Puljujärvi, Blake Wheeler. Why? right-handed shot, tall, rangy, great skater, and a leader. Wheeler's a leader on the Winnipeg Jets. Puljujarvi, a leader with the Finnish national team.
You know, you mentioned tall. For all the kids in the top 5, they're big kids already,
all
aren't
at least
they?
6'2", that's right.
How about 4 and 5?
Well, and they're big kids too. Matthew Tkachuk of the London Knights. For me, the comparison is to Corey Perry. Why? Well, it's the net presence, and Tkachuk makes plays around the net, he scores around the net, and it really works for me, even though Perry's a right-handed shot and Tkachuk's a left-handed shot. And Pierre-Luc Dubois of Cape Breton, a great comparison. Jacob Voracek of the Philadelphia Flyers. Why? Again, big guys, can skate, and both guys can play multiple forward positions. Dubois has played all 3 forward positions. Voracek has played different spots with Philadelphia. The comparison really works for me.
Does this get you like the Matrix? Does it weird you out having them all here like that?
Well, they're right here, right in front of us. Yeah.
Thanks, Damien.
Okay.
All right, so all the Boston Bruins fans out there, they know the movie Dumb and Dumber. They've only got a 1% chance, but you're saying there's a chance. Here's Don Sweeney and Elliot.
How many people have used that line around Cam Neely in the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, a few, I think, and that's, you know, Cam said you go, and Seabass will stay here.
Okay, Don, just the overall feeling around the Bruins. 2 weeks ago, you were hoping to be in the postseason. Have you guys come to grips with the way the year ended?
Come to grips, not with the disappointment of not making it. You know, we were in a pretty solid position coming down the stretch, and we failed to do what we needed to get in. This tonight represents hope that, you know, we're going to find a player that will help us continue with the transition and get back to being where we want to be.
The 1% odds, how much do you allow yourself to think about the possibility of jumping up into the top 3?
Well, you have to prepare. I mean, you have to know the top part of the draft, and we know that we're either going into the top 3 or staying at 14. So for us, it's all in or nothing in terms of where we're going to land up the draft. But we're prepared for either scenario and excited, obviously, if the opportunity presents itself.
You've heard a lot of talk about the potential players. Do you see it top 3 and then a bit of a gap, or do you see it differently?
Well, I think the top 3 have maybe a small separation, but you know that's you can't be disparaging against the players that other people have looked at 4, 5, or 6. All are great players, and I think the draft itself is very deep.
Thank you very much, Don.
Thanks, Elliot.
And George, like many of his compatriots, Don Sweeney is not telling us what the lucky item he brought with us to Toronto.
Oh, well, if anybody can find it out, Elliot, it will be you. Montreal, Edmonton, Ottawa, Winnipeg, we will speak to your team representatives when we return on NHL Draft Lottery Day on Hockey Night. Oh, we're getting closer and closer to the opening face-off tonight. All important. Game 2, Pittsburgh Penguins, Washington Capitals at the Verizon Center in D.C. What a finish it was for TJ Oshie in the last one. Pens fans are hoping for more. And here we go. Now there's only 10 of the representatives left in that room as they're getting ready for their NHL Draft Lottery, including some former greats, as on ice we see Brendan Shanahan and Trevor Linden as well. Come on inside, we continue. This is a strange situation for these guys to be in. Mark Bergevans here, Pierre Dorian, Kevin Shovlev, and of course Peter Chiarelli. So we're talking about 4 significant Canadian markets, and here you are, you want to do well in the NHL draft, you want to win, but the fact that you're even here is probably not an easy day.
No, I like you, George, but I hope I'm not back here next year.
Because then it would mean that you made the Stanley Cup playoffs, right?
Correct.
Have you got an exit route plan for you if Edmonton wins again?
An exit route, yeah. I got to duck out of here and no, we're excited we have the opportunity to get a high pick, but I'm with Berge. I mean, next year, hopefully, if I'm here, it's because we got a pick and a trade.
That's right. What does number 1 mean? What it mean to the franchise?
Well, getting a player of that stature, at least having the opportunity to make the choice of the draft, it can be a game changer for a franchise. You know, certainly, you know, one that's trying to build through the draft and. You know, again, we saw a player like Dale Hawerchuk to the Winnipeg Jets way back when. You know, those are the type of things that can transform franchises.
And there's a lot of work to do, not just getting a first overall pick, right? So do you look at this as just part of the plan?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, if we can move up in this draft, it'd be great for our franchise. It'd probably be the best week in our franchise after getting the LeBret Flats bid. But obviously, today, if we get the chance to move up, it'd be great.
So when you guys look at each other, are you already planning on what to do if you win? Can trades start to work at this place? Are you already that far ahead?
Well, I don't know if, you know, again, I think everybody's probably got plan A, B, and C in their mind. But certainly, you know, once you know where you're drafting, you know, as an organization, you can start making those decisions. I think everybody's got meetings coming up over the next couple of weeks, and you know, those are the type of discussions and decisions that'll happen internally.
You know, the Bruins have the 1% chance of getting it this year. You were with the Bruins the year that you could have got first overall. In the end, you ended up second, and you lost to the team that you currently work for.
Hockey's a funny business,
It really is, the difference between 1 and 2, how big a deal is it?
Well, it depends on the year. That year, we were happy to hold the position because we felt that there were 2 really good players available. There may be 3 or 4 this year. So we're all competitive. We all want to win we want to win the first pick overall. But I think all of us would be happy with like a top 3 or 4 pick, and 5 pick for that matter.
Mark, you were with the Blackhawks in the Patrick Kane year. What did it mean to be in an organization and know that player was available?
Well, he really turned. I mean, we already had Jonathan Toews, but he really turned the franchise around. We know what Patrick Kane did for the Chicago Blackhawks, and going from 5 to 1, it was a game changer for the franchise.
Mm-hmm. So when you sit around and think about your opportunities now, how far down have you scouted? Because you talked about holding your position, but you can drop a few places. Like, have you already scouted out exactly what you're going to do?
Well, we can drop to 5. Right?
Yeah.
So we can drop to 5, but we've of course scouted the whole round and beyond. But I'm kind of in my own mind just looking at the scope of 5. Right. So
any lucky charms on you? Do you have anything?
I've got a couple that I can't disclose on television.
Why not? Wait.
It's not an earring or something.
No,
like
it's none of that. No.
No.
I mean, I know a guy who can get you a good deal on it.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Do you guys have any? Do you play that superstition game at all?
I got something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you got?
It's right here. We're going to keep it there.
Are you that kind of guy?
No, I don't have anything.
No? You're just leaving it up to the math?
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, you know what? Certainly have something near and dear.
What do you take it to the franchise? You think about what it would mean for your team on the ice if you get a top pick, but what does it mean for the business of an organization when you can get a top pick?
When you can get a top pick, right away you can start selling jerseys, with that player's number on it. I think it's a way to generate revenue in the offseason that's sometimes not easy to do. So for the business of a team, I think it always helps getting a number 1 pick.
What has Connor meant so far for the Oilers?
Well, he's been, he's such a terrific player and a great ambassador for a young kid. And, that's a perfect example of getting a top pick. And he's a banner waver of our group going forward. We're going into the new building this summer. He's just a terrific kid. And from what I know and hear, these top few kids, I hear they're great kids too. So, as Chevy said, these guys can be game changers and it's hard to expect them to carry the franchise, but with Toews and Kane and guys like that, and they can make a huge difference in a hurry. That draft simulator that you've been playing so much, according to the numbers, it's been spun almost 5 million times so far. How many times have you spun it?
0.
I don't believe that. Seriously?
Seriously. No.
Once.
What happened? Did you like the results?
Yep.
Did you get number 1?
Nope.
Okay. Did you spun it?
No.
I haven't done it.
Scale of 1 to 10, how much are you telling the truth?
No, I haven't done it. Listen, we take flack for winning last year. Like, let's get through with this show and get on with it.
Or let's check with Elliot Friedman, who's standing by with another great. Elliot?
The Executive Vice President and General Manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, Ron Francis. And Ron, during George's question there about carrying Lucky Charms, you smiled. You don't carry anything.
Well, I brought some last year and it didn't work out so well for us. So we left all the Lucky Charms at home this year and we're hoping we get a little good karma tonight.
All right, your odds are not as good as they were last year for the number 1 overall pick. Good thing or bad thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing in the sense we're moving in the right direction. I think we had a lot of positive steps in our organization this year. We had a lot of good young players step in and contribute and play big minutes. So, you always want one of those top players, but we're moving in the right direction, so we're excited about that.
A lot of your contemporaries have said it's been quiet, talks around the league right now. Brian Burke said earlier today, 10 seconds after this lottery is done, summer business begins. Is that true?
Well, I think a lot of teams, they're still waiting to have their meetings the next week or two. But until everybody knows what their picks are and where they're slotted, it's pretty tough to have those conversations. Nobody wants to trade that pick away and then have it win the lottery a week later. So I'm sure business will pick up after tonight.
How do you see the top of the draft? How many tiers of players are there?
Well, we're sitting at 13, so we would love the problem that you've been asking everybody else. Who would you pick, 1 or 2? That would be a great problem for us to have. But certainly we think there's some high-end talent in the draft. We also think it's a deep draft. So, we're excited with 7 picks in the top 74 to get some good players.
You're a center. What do you think of Austin Matthews?
I think he's a good player. He's a big, talented centerman. Those guys are tough to find in the NHL. So certainly the team that gets him and is going to be extremely happy.
Ron, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
George?
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you very much, Ron. We are getting closer to it. As you can see, there's a big one. Sidney Crosby making his way into the Verizon Center. The Penguins and the Washington Capitals. Game 2, there's the Great 8. Would like to build. Can he turn around what happened in 2009? We'll be right back.
So we go to round number 2 with Crosby and Ovechkin on the marquee. It should be a series with even so much more than that. Centering pass, Benito shoots, he scores! And it's a 3-3 tie. Oshie hangs on patiently, wraparound, scores! TJ Oshie, 3 goals, and Washington wins game 1 4-3.
Top 5 hottest plays of the week. Brought to you by York, official heating and air conditioning sponsor of the NHL.
Pretty self-explanatory. Number 5, Kelly Rudy.
And I never get tired of watching this shot from Tarasenko. One of the best releases in the game, just totally overwhelms Corey Crawford.
All right, Kelly, and speaking of Corey Crawford, how about this sprawling pad save on Fabry in the first round? Crawford showing the future is still bright for Chicago.
Number 3, my former team moving on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs because of this series clinching goal from Jonathan Tavares. Wrap around, what a beautiful goal.
Number 2, Nick, is a player you've been talking about all Stanley Cup playoffs,
Joel
isn't it?
Ward continuing to show people he is clutch in the playoffs. This is the goal that broke Nashville's back in Game 1. Joel Ward.
Number 1 and number 1 in our hearts, Elliot Friedman.
Don't lie to the viewers, George. Nick Bonino, that line, Hagelin, Bonino, Kessel, it's allowed them to be an even more dangerous team. Beautiful goal with Ben Lovejoy for the Penguins.
Pros Views, brought to you by the GMC Sierra. We are professional grade.
All right, how about this for pros? How about a hat trick and an overtime winner? We know what TJ Oshie means to his franchise. We know what TJ Oshie meant to his national team when he became TJ Sochi. But TJ was actually, Nick and Kelly, part of a trade that worked out in the best way for both teams.
You know what? The only thing in common is they got traded for each other, but they are polar opposites in terms of the type of players they are. You know, Glenn Healy showed us time and time again in warm-up the skill level of Oshie, the ability to flip a puck, catch it on his head, and put it on his toe. He has that type of skill, but that was not what St. Louis wanted moving forward. They wanted a north-south type of player, Kelly, and they got it in Brouwer, case in point on his big goal in round 1. But with Oshie, he's really found a fit when you talk about him being on the big line with Backstrom and Ovechkin.
And it's all about support. So he has that skill level. You look at his hat trick from last game. And what's interesting about this whole sequence is that lately he's really been getting a lot of support and confidence from his line mates, Backstrom and Ovechkin. They're telling him or reminding him, you have a fantastic shot. Use it, because he's a pass-first kind of guy. And that's really cool that he's really taking that advice. And it's interesting, a skilled guy still didn't really believe in himself. And you look at these goals, they're all a little bit different. This one might get a bit of a break on, might have missed a shot right there, goes 5-hole on Murray. But lastly, on the wraparound, this is great because he knows he's got a great look right there and he's going to finish it off. And as Ovechkin has been telling him, look, I'll get my looks. You go ahead and finish if you think you have a better chance than I. And he's taking that advice, and it's been wonderful for him.
Great balance on the wraparound, too. George, back to you.
Unbelievable edge work. Thank you very much, Nick Kyprios and Kelly Rudy. All right, let's check in with TJ Oshie himself, who's standing by in the hallway of the Verizon Center right now with our very own number 1, Scott Oak.
TJ, it was power on power in Game 1. I think you were on the line, on the ice against Crosby's line for about 15 minutes total. If that's to be the matchup again tonight, how do you win it?
We got to limit their chances, limit our turnovers, try to play in their end. I don't think anyone likes playing in the D zone, so that'll be our goal tonight.
I recall asking you in November if one puck was enough for a line with you, Backstrom, and Ovechkin, and clearly it was enough for you in game number 1 with the hat trick. When did you start feeling completely comfortable pulling the trigger yourself and not worrying about setting up your 2 line mates?
It took a while there. I think in around mid-December, January, I started feeling comfortable shooting the puck myself. There is times in games where you want to get it to 8 because more times than not he's going to find the back of the net. But lately I've been shooting a little bit more and it's been helping us out.
In the Stanley Cup playoffs, you need all the support you can get, and you're getting some support in this video clip. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, I found that in the morning before a pregame skate, and after breakfast, the wife must have got creative with it when they went home, and Lila decided to kick it. So pretty funny. She doesn't have any hate for the Penguins.
It's a Penguins poster.
Yeah, it is, and she was just following orders there.
Hey, you cannot top gorgeous kids on TV, and she's one. Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Gorgeous kids kicking things. That's what you can't top. That it's downplayed. She has no hate for the Penguins. Oh, yes, she does. She's rooting for Daddy. So the game between the Pens and the Caps is the second game of the Stanley Cup playoff action tonight. There was a game earlier. Should we run through what's happened in that game? It was quite a story. First of all, we have huge expectations from the superstars, and Tyler Johnson did not fail. Comes in, look at this, wait, and just to the backhand, makes it 1-0 from Palat and Hedman, a number 2. The year that Tavares went number 1. We'll explore that in just a little bit. By the way, Jonathan Drouin continues to have a pretty solid Stanley Cup playoff run. He made it 2-0 off that backhand. Now, Nikolai Kulemin's going to get the Islanders on the board right there. That's a power play goal from Hickey and Quine. Hickey would play a role later in the game. That got a little nasty, and you can actually see it right there. 4-1 at the final. There's the hip check. Lowbridge really on it, on Paquette, and it gets nasty. Killorn jumps in on it. Lots of rough stuff. Builds the hate for the next game. 4-1, the final. The Lightning beat the New York Islanders this afternoon, and we tied that series all up at 1. It is pretty great watching this series, Mick, because you're able to see some really, really talented players go head-to-head.
Yeah, and they often are the game breakers. And for Tampa Bay, it was Tyler Johnson. 22.5 minutes for Tavares. Really one of the more quieter games we've seen out of him in terms of being the difference maker from game in, game out in round 1. 19 shots was not getting it done on Bishop. They'll be much better in game 3.
You know, speaking of goaltending, not to profile you as just a goaltender, but Grace has been unbelievable for the Islanders today, but perhaps not so much right now.
Well, afternoon games can be difficult, and I think today was evidence of that. He certainly wasn't at his best, and I thought that, in fact, the Islanders had a better start. But unfortunately, Grace wasn't at his best, and I thought Ben Bishop was pretty strong in the first period.
Ben Bishop was, if you talk about players who bounced back from game 1, Bishop would obviously be number 1 on your list, but the whole Tampa team, the second and third period, the Islanders could just do nothing, and Nick is right. Of all the games we've done with the Islanders this year, that's the least we've mentioned Tavares' name, so that's how you know he's going to be huge come Tuesday.
That series all tied up at 1, and that is exactly what the Pittsburgh Penguins are hoping to do not too long from now after the NHL draft lottery. Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver, and really the man on the top right knows both those markets intimately. We'll talk to Shanahan and Burke and Trevor Linden when we return on Hockey Night.
The number 1 overall selection belongs to Pittsburgh Penguins.
Pittsburgh Penguins select Sidney Crosby.
Sidney Crosby and the Penguins have won the Stanley Cup.
Then our first pick, Steven Stamkos.
Number 60 for Steven Stamkos.
The number 1 selection belongs to the New York Islanders. The first overall pick belongs to the Edmonton Oilers.
McDavid, what a play, what a goal! Oh my, Connor McDavid!
Connor McDavid, we know what he has meant to the Edmonton Oilers already. As you know, your draft odds for tonight. Leafs have the best chance, and the Oilers, Vancouver, Columbus, Calgary, Winnipeg, are going all the way down to Boston at 1%. A lot of stock in this game, as you know, is put into scouting and who you can pick, not just with the top picks, but who you can pick later in a draft. Because a first overall pick obviously has a massive impact on your organization, but it is not always a super positive one. What does it mean to go number 1? Here's Scott Morrison.
It's been said that lotteries are a surtax on desperation. You pay your money, you dare to dream, and you try again. The NHL's draft lottery probably isn't any different. Desperate teams, desperately hoping to get that first overall pick who will transform the fortunes of their franchise on and off the ice.
McDavid trying to split the defense. McDavid, what a play, what a goal! Oh my, Connor McDavid!
Connor McDavid, of course, is the most recent example of a generational type player to come along, the slam dunk pick. And there have been a few others, of course, over the years. Such as in 2005, when the Penguins hit pay dirt with Sidney Crosby. A Stanley Cup and skyrocketing franchise value followed. And 29 other teams were left to wonder what might have been.
So every time I see Sidney, you know what I say to him? This close, Sid.
You were this close to being a Duck.
Or a year earlier, when Washington's number came up and handed them Alex Ovechkin. You could say that lottery had 2 first prizes, as Pittsburgh was bumped to number 2 and had to settle for Evgeny Malkin. We'll call that a win-win.
First time ever the Chicago Blackhawks have had the first pick, and we proudly select from the London Knights, the Ontario Hockey League, Patrick Kane.
Chicago won the big prize in 2007, moving from 5th pick to 1st to select Kane. All he's done is stamp his name on the Stanley Cup 3 times since. But if you think a lottery win automatically guarantees success, consider the 2000 New York Islanders, who also moved from 5th to 1st. They chose Rick DiPietro, leaving the Rangers to select the best goalie that year with the 205th overall pick. Indeed, winning the lottery is still just part of turning a struggling team around. Even with talents as great as Crosby and Ovechkin, or even a Tavares and Stamkos, Thornton and Nash, that turnaround isn't guaranteed to happen right away, if ever. Remember, since the lottery was introduced, just 5 first overall picks have won the Calder Trophy. And over those 21 years, just 4 number 1 picks have won a Stanley Cup. And like money, a draft lottery win doesn't guarantee success, and it doesn't always buy happiness. But it gives you a pretty good chance to find both.
Please welcome to the show today. We have Brian Burke, Brendan Shanahan, and Trevor Linden as well. We represent Vancouver and Toronto and Calgary. And of course, you have represented both these cities for a long time in your career as well. Last year, you had a lucky charm on you. What do you have this year?
Nothing.
Nothing. Other GMs don't want to say what they have, but you already tweeted out what you brought.
I did, yes. Pat Quinn rookie card, 70-71 season. So, yeah, he's with us tonight. So
very nice. I know you're a practical man, but are you superstitious as well?
Yep.
What'd you bring?
None of your business.
Come on, it's my business.
No.
It's our business. It's a collective. It's our business.
We'll see how it goes. I might tell you if it goes well.
Well, we'll find out. How are you feeling today?
Feel fine. Feel fine.
Are you lying?
A little bit. I think we all just, it's sort of out of our control. We just want to get to the lottery and see where we end up.
So much can happen on a draft day, right? What would it mean to have a top pick for the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, I think it's another building block. Obviously, we're in a transition period here, and to put another good young player potentially in our lineup in September, but more likely just part of our group is important. And I think where we sit at 3, whether we draft 3 or 6, we're going to get a good player, and it's going to be a foundational player for us moving forward.
Brian, when you look at these two guys, you know both their cities very well. Do you have any advice for them?
Oh, no. I just make sure you don't mismatch any here working here. No, I'd say with what Trevor said, you get a foundational player. The difference being is when you see him. If you're picking in the top 3, you're going to see that player in the fall. If you're picking below that, you're probably going to see him a year or 2 or 3 years down the road, but they're still really good players. We're comfortable where we are. We're comfortable if we drop. It's just a question of timing. You pick in the top 3, those kids are going to start with your team.
What if you're picking like 2 and 3? And what it could mean to your franchise, as you know, with the Sedins.
Yeah, that was, and I don't mean to offend any of the players that were in that draft. That's the worst first round in the history of the National Hockey League.
Yeah, well, not a lot of players. The Sedins were clearly the best ones.
Barrett Jackman,
I'm sure they're not offended.
Barrett Jackman has had a real good career, but other than that, it's pretty spotty. And so we were able to do that in Vancouver because teams were perfectly willing to part with those picks. No one's willing to part with picks in this draft. You're going to have to pay a ransom to get them out of teams this year.
So you're saying if they were better players, nobody would have been able to give you those picks to put you in that position?
No, and we paid an awful price. Bob Murray, he's a pirate, We gave up Brian McCabe in a first-round pick to get the 4th pick. Brian McCabe was a really good player. He was in his prime then. So we paid a really high price to get those 2 players. But that's because I firmly believe they were the only 2 quality players in the high end of that draft. We liked Patrick Stefan, too. Donnie Waddell took him first overall, but he had concussion issues, or he would have been a good player. But I don't see any parallels at all between that draft and this draft.
Trevor, what was it like to watch Berkey make those moves for the Canucks?
Well, at the time, I wasn't with the Vancouver Canucks guy because I'd been traded the year before. But, it's amazing to think that Daniel Henrik Sedin may have played their career on different teams. To think of what they've done in their career to this point is amazing. And to think that even at that time, to add a top 5 pick, that you could take those 2 guys, together was remarkable, and I can't imagine them ever playing without one another, because they're just, it's magic watching them play together.
Yeah, when you took this job, Brendan, you knew that there was work ahead of you with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Does 1, 2, or 3 accelerate your plan?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think I agree with Berkey. I think that there's you're going to get a good player. I mean, we're picking 1, 2, 3, or 4, and so you're going to get a player that's going to have a big impact on your franchise. It's just a matter of when, and probably you could argue that those first 3 are maybe in a situation right now where people think they're going to have that impact next year. But you could also argue that there's a young man sitting there at 4 that is, more than willing to prove everybody else wrong and say that he's going to make an impact next year as well.
Right. Brian, what's it like when you lose the #1 pick, when you know the #1 pick? We saw your clip earlier, how close Crosby was to being a draft pick for you. What's it like when that goes by you?
Well, that was a weird thing, because we'd lost a whole season and every team was in that lottery. And our scout said to me the night before, just try to get in the top 6. I'm like, it's a lottery. I mean, try to get in the top 6. So we got to 6, and I was like, okay, now I can relax. Then we got to 4, and now you're thinking Jack Johnson or Carey Price. Then you get to 2, and I had this irrational belief that we were going to win it. I went up there thinking, we're getting Sidney Crosby. And, of course, they went to a commercial. I was going to kill the host. He said, well, we'll find out who gets Sidney Crosby right after this commercial. And I was like, as soon as they went to break, I said, I ought to kill you. And so then it comes back. We got Bobby Ryan. Bobby Ryan's a hell of a hockey player. He's had a good career. He's not Sidney Crosby. And then you get that close, and you're like, geez, man, you could feel it. You could taste it.
How many times have you run the draft simulator?
I haven't run it once. Our staff's done it. I got better things to do.
Has anybody reported to you on your chances?
Yeah, they work out to about what the NHL says they are.
Have you run it?
I did it once.
Yeah?
I did it once. I actually didn't know they were doing it. I remember last year everybody was doing it, and I didn't know they were doing it again this year.
Right.
So I went online, found it, pressed it once, worked out well, closed the computer, pushed it away. I have not done it since.
So Leafs got the first pick, you shut it down, and that was it?
That was it.
How many times have you run it?
I've not done it.
You've not done it at all?
No, everyone in our office has
I'm the only guy
multiple
admitting
times,
it here.
Yeah. But everybody has done it. What a huge night it would be. I know we've talked to the GMs earlier, the ones that were at the table, that it is very different to be here. You don't want to be at this table. You don't want to be part of the NHL draft because it means that you didn't make the Stanley Cup playoffs. So are you hoping this is your last year?
No interest in being here. Hoping for good results, but very happy to never be here again.
Well, then it means you did your job if that happens, right? Brian Burke, Brendan Shanahan, and Trevor Linden, thank you very much, guys. Thanks. We're getting closer and closer to it. In fact, the chairs are being filled by team representatives right now as everybody wonders, where will they select? Who will get #1? Who will win the lottery for #1? Who will get #2? And who will get #3? We have NBC's Catherine Tappan and Sportsnet Darren Millard to take you through it, along with Bill Daly, when we come back on Hockey Night.
Welcome to a unique moment in the history of the National Hockey League.
The draft lottery is not something I could control. One of the most intense moments of my life. I think everything happens for a reason. It was crazy. Kind of every card that flipped, you don't really know what to expect. You're waiting for that team that, wins the lottery, because that basically solidifies the order.
And we have a winner.
There's 30 teams in the league that I would like to pick first.
There's pressure inside of those cities like you just can't believe. Austin Matthews, he's going to be the first overall pick.
I'm like everybody else, I like to pick first.
Here comes Matthews, scores!
Patrick Laine, he's going to score goals.
Puljujärvi, he does everything. He is going to be a franchise-type player.
From downtown Toronto, this is the 2016 National Hockey League Draft Lottery, a night that will determine who will be awarded the first overall pick. Under the guidance of Commissioner Gary Bettman, the lottery has just concluded. The results transferred to cards, reflecting the new format that featured 3 separate draws this year, determining the top 3 selections. The cards, carried by Scott Clark from Ernst & Young, will eventually pass the team representatives that are entered in this year's lottery. These are the clubs that missed the playoffs. Tonight may soothe that disappointment. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 2016 NHL Draft Lottery. I'm Darren Millard from Sportsnet, alongside NBC Sports' Catherine Tappan. Tonight's a big step towards next month's NHL Draft in Buffalo. We will determine where 14 teams will select. We will also determine who gets the #1 overall selection.
14 non-playoff teams all vying for the #1 position and the top pick at the draft. 7 U.S.-based teams. And for the first time ever, 7 Canadian teams are all taking a shot at the #1 pick. Odds vary from a 1% chance where the Boston Bruins sit based on their regular season finish to 20%. That is the chance that the Toronto Maple Leafs have to coming away with the #1 overall pick.
All those numbers translate into prospects of acquiring one of 3 important players. The consensus #1 pick, American and Arizona-born and raised Austin Matthews. He is rated #1 by Central Scouting. Matthews is followed closely by a pair of Finnish forwards, Patrick Laine and Jesse Puljujärvi. They helped Finland to a World Junior Championship in January. All 3 watching tonight from around the world.
And joining us now from Helsinki, Finland, where it is 3 in the morning, is Austin Matthews, as he is with Team USA at minicamp preparing for the upcoming World Championships. And Austin, I know there's a bit of a delay, so bear with us here, but describe what this moment of anticipation is like for you as you get ready to hear which team is going to take the #1 overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's definitely a little nerve-wracking, exciting, but it's a unique process to be a part of.
The top 2 picks from last year, Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel, both had tremendous rookie seasons. How excited are you at the idea of coming into this league?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, it's still a ways away, but a lot of work to do. But just to have the opportunity to be drafted and hope to make an NHL club, come September time is very exciting.
Austin, what would you say you are most looking forward to with playing in the National Hockey League?
Well, it's the best league in the world. You're not going to find better players. So, I like to compete, and to compete against these types of players. It's definitely something I'm looking forward to, and hopefully can make happen.
Well, we will look forward to talking to you shortly after the draw. Stick with us. We'll catch up with you later on in the show. But for now, let's go over to Darren.
With Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, you've done this now 9 times. You've seen the format evolve over the years, but a pretty significant change for 2016. Take us through that.
Yeah, it's the last step of multiple changes that the managers decided to make. In this one, we're going to have the top 3 selections picked by lottery.
No pucks, no ice, no skates in this room, but it's turned into a big night.
It really has. It's come a long way in the 9 years I've been doing it. It's, the level of excitement, the fact the clubs are as engaged as they are, it's become an exciting event on our calendar.
You've got everybody right there. You captivate them. Do you know the results?
I don't know the results.
Have you in years past?
I have previously, not last year, but I have in years past.
We look forward to your night. The lottery being overseen by Ernst & Young. Scott, if you could bring in the results. Of the 16 clubs who have never won the NHL Draft Lottery, 8 are involved tonight. Bill, it's your time.
Thank you. As an initial matter, I'd like to thank the 14 representatives who traveled here to Toronto, and I wish them all good luck in the draft lottery. And with that, let's get started. The number 14 selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Boston Bruins.
Boston will pick 14th for a 2nd consecutive year. For the first time, representatives of all eligible teams are in the studio with us, learning their lottery fate in person. At 13, Carolina, which has never won the draft lottery.
The number 13 selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to Carolina Hurricanes.
Carolina has selected 13th once when they were Hartford Whalers, 1995 J.S. Giguère. At 12, it's Ottawa.
The number 12 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Ottawa Senators.
No team in the 12th spot has ever won the draft lottery. At 11, the New Jersey Devils, who won the draft lottery in 2011, taking Adam Larson.
The number 11 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the New Jersey Devils.
No changes so far to the top 10 and Colorado.
The number 10 selection overall in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to Colorado Avalanche.
3 years ago, Colorado moved from 2 to 1. Colorado stays at 10 for a second straight year. At number 9, the first Canadian club, Montreal.
The number 9 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Montreal Canadiens.
Montreal's first appearance in the lottery in 4 years leaves them at 9. Buffalo enters the night at 8.
The number 8 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Buffalo Sabres.
And after falling from the number 1 position the past 2 years, the Sabres stay. Coyotes, an emotional lottery for them, the connection to Austin Matthews, who is from Arizona.
The number 7 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Arizona Coyotes.
Arizona Coyotes at 7. Coyotes, Winnipeg Jets, took Shane Doan 7th in 1995. To number 6.
The number 6 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Calgary Flames.
That was the Winnipeg Jets' position coming in. The Calgary Flames will fall back 1 spot. The Flames will now select 6, meaning Winnipeg is the first team to win one of the 3 draws. The Jets guaranteed to select in the top 3. Time to enter the top 5.
The number 5 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Vancouver Canucks.
The Vancouver Canucks slide 2 spots from 3 to 5. That means Columbus has won a second draw in this year's draft lottery. To number 4, and one more opportunity remaining for a top 3 selection. Edmonton or Toronto?
The number 4 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Edmonton Oilers.
Will not be back-to-back years for the Edmonton Oilers. 11 teams have now been eliminated from contention for the first overall pick. Up next, we focus on the final 3. John Davidson, Kevin Cheveldayoff, Brendan Shanahan. No one of them has been selected. Will it be Columbus, Winnipeg, or Toronto? The 2016 NHL Draft Lottery winning announcement is next.
Welcome back to the 2016 NHL Draft Lottery. We are about to reveal the final 3 spots for the right to select number 1 overall at this year's NHL Draft. Kevin Cheveldayoff of the Winnipeg Jets, Brendan Shanahan from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and John Davidson of the Columbus Blue Jackets watch it all unfold as Toronto, Winnipeg, and Columbus, the remaining 3 teams in the draw, as we go back to Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly with the final results.
The number 3 overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to Columbus Blue Jackets.
Columbus moves up 2 positions, 5 to 3, will select 3rd. That leaves Winnipeg and Toronto. The Leafs enter tonight with a 20% chance to win the lottery. The Jets held 7.5% chance to win the lottery. Jets General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff, Maple Leaf President Brendan Shanahan, and Austin Matthews in Finland look to Bill Daly to reveal who will win the first overall selection. Bill?
The first overall selection in the 2016 NHL Draft belongs to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Toronto has won the 2016 NHL Draft Lottery. Congratulations to Brendan Shanahan, General Manager Lou Lamoriello, Coach Mike Babcock. That means Winnipeg is awarded the second overall selection. To recap, here are the first 14 selections of the 2016 NHL Draft, with Toronto winning the lottery. Toronto, the win marks the first time since 2010 that the team with the highest percentage chance retained the first overall selection. They will pick first overall for the first time since 1985. Here's Catherine Tappan.
All right, Darren, thank you very much. Joined by Brendan Shanahan. And Brendan, you participated in the NHL Draft Lottery Simulator, and the Leafs won. How does it feel to have the reality come true here tonight?
This one's much better.
Can you tell us a little bit about your insight into maybe what your thoughts are going into the draft on who you will select at number 1?
You know, it's I'm just still a little bit rattled from this whole experience. I think we were all, that was a pretty tense moment for all of us. And I think just to get into the final 3, even Columbus, Winnipeg, and us, we just felt, you know, very good that we were all going to get a great player. And quite frankly, again, it's a deep draft. There are lots of guys that are going to do very well in this, but we earned this the hard way. It wasn't a whole lot of fun this year, but our guys and our coaching staff and our management staff did a lot of really good things here in Toronto. But this will certainly help.
You've done a lot of good things here in Toronto as well. Last year, you brought in a new head coach in Mike Babcock. What will the number 1 overall pick mean to this franchise going forward?
Well, to help, and it's a team sport, and it's not about one guy, and that's one thing that Mike and Lou really believe in. But certainly, when you have an opportunity to pick first overall, it's an important moment for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's an important moment for our fans. Our ownership group has given us the support to do this build the right way. So this is a little bit of luck here. It's a lottery, and we're just happy to be lucky today. And but we didn't get here without a lot of support from our fans, from our ownership group, and from our whole staff.
Well, Brendan, congratulations, and I'm sure feel a little bit of relief as well. Thanks so much. Darren, back over to you.
Thanks, Catherine.
9th time in 22 NHL draft lotteries, the team with the highest percentage odds has won the draft lottery. That was the reaction in downtown Toronto at Real Sports Bar and Grill as the Toronto Maple Leafs won the 2016 NHL Draft Lottery. The number 1 rated prospect, Austin Matthews, looking on from Finland. What was that like to watch this drama?
Yeah, very nerve-wracking, but yeah, I know a lot of mixed emotions, but you know, it's definitely pretty exciting to be a part of.
Are you more relieved now or excited?
I think a little bit of both. You know, it's nice to have a little bit of clarity. You know, nothing's set in stone, and you know, there's still a ways away from the draft. So, just trying to stay in the moment right now, and you know, enjoy my time here and focus on the World Championships.
How much did you look at the teams with the higher odds, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, like the Edmonton Oilers, and going on down the list?
Not too much. I try not to really focus on that and kind of stay away. And you know, whatever happens, happens. You know, it'll work out for itself.
Okay, what time is it there right now in Helsinki?
Yeah, 3:30 something.
Okay, go to bed then.
So yeah, I'll probably head there soon.
All right, thanks, Austin. Good luck with the World Championships. Catherine?
All right, join us on June 24th as the NHL Draft unfolds from Buffalo, New York on NBCSN in the U.S. and on Sportsnet across Canada. For Darren Millard, Bill Daly, and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Catherine Tappan. Stay tuned for Game 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins from Washington, D.C.
All right, we still have a hockey game to get to, the Pens and the Caps, Game 2 from the Stanley Cup Playoff Series. But first, guys, thoughts on the draft lottery?
Hey, listen, for the country, that's back-to-back. Connor McDavid a year ago, now Austin Matthews ends up in Toronto. It's a game changer for the franchise, something that was desperately needed.
Great for Winnipeg as well.
Well, that's right, and you could see the faces of the team representatives, how important this was. And the top 3 were certainly at their own level, and then the next 2, and then after that it drops off a little bit.
It's going to be interesting to see how much this changes for Toronto. They've said that they are going to be patient. They are going to follow a plan. Now that they have the number 1 pick, what do they decide to do in free agency? Does this change the way that Toronto looks at its next year or 2?
There you go. The results of the draft lottery are in. The Toronto Maple Leafs with the first overall pick for the first time since '85 when they picked up Wendell Clark. Let us take you now to the Verizon Center in Washington, D.C. Jim Houston, Craig Simpson. Take it away, gentlemen. It's all yours, and Glenn Healy.
Thank you, George. Congratulations to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you need look no further than this series between Washington and Pittsburgh to show what the draft means. Alex Ovechkin was the first pick in 2004. There's the ultimate lottery pick, Sid Crosby in 2005. 6 of his teammates were drafted in the first round. Washington